This is the Snark for Trailer Postmortem, and today we're taking a look at the fourth episode of What If? Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. Before watching the episode, I had thoughts. If Strange lost his heart, would Tony Stark step in to help? He has a lot of experience in that field. Instead, we find out that Strange loses his heart metaphorically. Much like Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, American Horror Story. Check us out on Trailer Post for our spoiler cast. Marvel has been trying its hand at the anthology. This What If series is based off the amazing comics, but here we get the MCU version. My what ifs are as follows. Just very simple. What if the X-Men were on the MCU? Like yesterday. That would be amazing. Instead, we get our roster from the MCU, and this includes, but is not limited to, Doctor Strange. If you've seen the movie, there's no need for the setup. Within the first 5 minutes, we get a summary of Doctor Strange, the movie, with one small caveat. Strange is less of an asshole surgeon, and Cumberbatch reprises his role with a much more convincing American accent this time around. Cumberbatch's rejoice. After performing a difficult surgery, Christine and Strange go out for a night on the town. Christine can't wait to get some creme brulee to celebrate, so he's taking her to Starbucks apparently, and this Starbucks sits at the top of a mountain. After nearly colliding with upcoming traffic, Strange gets T-boned and somersaults off the side of the mountain, landing in a shallow ravine. Christine dies on impact, but she doesn't have that car, unfortunately, so no Stephen King crossover for those out there ready, like I am. I know I am. Instead, her death is enough to upset Strange slightly. It's kind of weird to equate his hands to an entire human body, but they make it work somehow. Strange becomes the drunk sorcerer supreme for a time. He's strung out, and who would blame him, pining over his lost love for 2 years. Then he gets this bright idea I would have had from the very start. Use the eye of Agamotto, or Quasimodo, to travel to the night he lost his beloved. If I could just borrow that eye, I'd go back to the moment I ever thought of student loans. Maybe the moment they were ever even thought of. Maybe buy some stock or something, a few lotto tickets. Warn myself about a few X's in the future. I don't know, the possibilities are endless. What would you do if you could go back in time? Comment below. So, this sets off a montage of failed attempts. Every time Strange tries to rewrite history, he fails miserably. And Christine dies over and over like the girl in Happy Death Day. The reason is because Christine is destined to die, and we find out this when the Ancient One shows up, Tilda Swinton. The Ancient One explains to Strange that this is a very point in time in an absolute. It's a very important time, or this is a point in time in an absolute. Everything about the story hinges on this concept of the predestined or fixed point in time. The Ancient One warns that this moment can't be undone, but then warns that it will lead to destruction. So, can it be done or not. There's a fight, and Strange is blasted into another time. This is when things get messy. But it's important because it sets up Strange's hunt for answers. Now, at this time, we don't know that Strange has been, split into two, but by the end, it becomes very important. Strange meets Obing, who writes him or brings him to a library of Cagliostro. In Strange's hunt for power, he summons a hentai tentacled beast, similar to the one Captain UK Peggy Carter fought in the first episode. Anyone know if they're related? Maybe they're just the same poor, unfortunate soul that's minding its own business, but gets summoned somehow. Strange can't take the power from the hentai creature, so he has to level up, Dark Souls style. He starts with a garden gnome and works his way up to some creatures from Lord of the Rings. Animation is top notch here, and I wonder if it's even, hand drawn. Strange levels up in days until he gets strong enough to face the tentacle Leviathan, and Strange absorbs the calamari, no sweat. So, once the librarian Obing is about to die, Strange offers to run the clock back on Obing. But some years in this life, he wants to put some years on this man's life. But he graciously declines, and as we find out, that Strange has become, I don't know, he must have some kind of abandonment issues. We learn that there are multiple Stranges in multiverses. This could be the premise of Spider-Man No Way Home, and it could lead into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, because we're literally getting the backstory of this other Strange. He's a non-canonical version, and time, at this point it's doing this big, it's a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. At this point, I see a blue box. If I see a blue box, then this thing is about to get very interesting. Unfortunately, that never happens. What we get is Marvel sticking to its tried and true. Good characters never go bad. And we discover that Strange has literally been split into two entities. Yeah, keep the tradition alive. It's the other Strange that's causing all the problems. Strange meets his evil twin, and that's when we see his deep depression and fixation, what it has wrought. Raccoon eyes, heavy eye, and a much more interesting get-up. The very cape that was lifted off that cockroach looks simply divine. This Strange gets his Maleficent moment, and this is where things get interesting. I'm not a fan of the trope that trying to fix the past is negative or selfish, but here it works. Humans can be selfish, and none of us are immune to trauma, so his reaction to this Strange's actions seem believable and honest, even if they were a little over the top. I'm not sure how the other Strange dealt with the loss, but they do allude to Strange drinking before he was split into two, so maybe he has maybe he's a full-blown alcoholic now. Disney should look into that. Maybe a few nods to how the other Strange, dealt with his loss. Maybe a spotlight on mental health. I don't know. So, depressed Strange has an unhealthy fixation on Christine that is going to rip apart the very fabric of space and time. And we're meant to do these mental gymnastics after trying to remember the time jumps in the endgame. The rules of this what if scenario says that it can be done or it can't be done at all. Forget about Loki. They're not connected. Since the depressed Strange never got past the first stage of grief, denial of course, and due to his dark powers, everything just rolled over into anger. Depressed Strange tries to convince the other Strange to save Christine, but the sensible Strange refuses. Imagine if we would have agreed, that would have been a very interesting angle to take. Instead, because both strangers are beyond intellectual reasoning, they're left with very little options than to just fight it out. And what a fight. It's a display of magic and sorcery that would make Harry Potter blush. And after we nearly get a face-off between two dueling capes, you heard it, dueling capes, the depressed Strange wins the fight and absorbs normal Strange. This complete Strange is able to resurrect Christine. Wow. So, in the remix of Beauty and the Beast, Belle, aka Christine, is the rose encased in glass, and Strange morphs into the beast for dramatic effect. It also reminded me of Mr. Freeze's wife from Batman, the animated series. But this episode between, it really puts itself between itself and that greatness. When Christine awakes, she's completely beside herself as the world begins to fall apart and Christine comes face to face with what appears to be an alchemy transmutation gone horribly wrong. As reality evaporates, the Watcher even makes an appearance, but not to help, no. A Watcher can never interfere, but apparently they can show up to gloat, and this one does. So, Strange is left to pay for his actions in a very Icarus-like way. He got too close to the sun, and now the entire world must burn for his actions. Christine dies, and we're led to believe the absolute timeline remains intact. Personally, I'm not exactly sure what was gained or lost in the first place. Let me know in the chat, because even this attempt could have been done in the montage we got earlier, and I'm sure why it was this different time, why it was different this time around, because even the two strangers merged. They were still, a failure at the end, and Christine still died. The ending was emotional, very somber. I was left wondering why Strange just didn't scoop Christine in the first place, take her to the current timeline to chill, and let insanity ensue. Does that type of time travel not work without a TARDIS? Why do these time travelers never warn the soon-to-be departed that they're about to die? Does Christine even get a say? If Strange can freely go back and forth through time, why not go all the way? Maybe see Christine in the hospital? Well, she'll have a better chance this time. Other comic adaptations answer these questions, and we get it all. I mean, we get a lot here, but we don't get everything. I'll end by saying I love the animation that Disney is doing here. It may not be that intense like an anime or the final season of Castlevania, but it's clean and I can see the gains from the first episode. Now, if Marvel can keep the Disney-isms to a minimum, they're looking at another home run. So, let us know what you think in the chat. For Trailer Postmortem, this is the Snark, signing out.